Thank you all very much for coming. Just recently I've been labelled a racist for expressing my concerns about the Sudanese gang problems. Prime Minister Morrison's even intimated it. What he's actually doing then is pretty much calling out every Australian who has the same concern and calling them a racist. That's wrong. Decent Australian people have had enough of these people coming into our country, Sudanese and Muslims coming into the country, living on our welfare, and then attacking our citizens in their homes, on the streets and on our beaches. The Australian people, the people that I speak to, the decent hard-working Australians, are fed up with it. They've had enough. They're calling for something to be done, and to be done urgently. Just recently, we've had all the gang violence in Melbourne, but now it's in Brisbane. It's also spread to Perth and other cities, even some of the regional cities. In Perth the other night, a whole family, including a grandmother, a mother and a couple of daughters and a son, were beaten violently by a Sudanese gang. People who are saying it's not happening are lying. It is happening. It's happening right here. Something has to be done about it. I'm calling on Mr Morrison to allow the Australian people to have a say in who comes to this country via a plebiscite. I have the bill. I presented it in the Senate. It was knocked back, but it's time now to give the Australian people a say in who their neighbours are going to be. The politicians don't have to live with these people. They're living in their leafy suburbs with their high fences and stuff like that. The average Australian is the people who are having to put up with these bashings. The people who are scared to go out to the street at night. Now that's not what Australia's about. Australians want a peaceful life for themselves, their family, for their kids and for their grandkids. They don't want a third world country. They don't need that. We don't need that in this country. So I'm calling for Mr Morrison to, at this next general election, we can have a plebiscite. It won't cost any more than the election itself. It'll cost nothing compared with the plebiscite we had on gay marriage, which cost $160 million. We can do it all on the same thing, all on the same ballot papers. So that's what we need to do. We need to stop all this nonsense. If the police aren't able to stop it, and I'm sure they are, but their hands are being tied by different state governments, then bring the army back from overseas and we'll start rounding up these gangs and shipping them out of the country. So all I'm saying is that for 45 years, Australian people have never had a say in who comes to this country. Successive prime ministers have loaded their electorates with these people simply for their vote, and they haven't integrated. They are not good citizens. They're not good migrants. They're not like the Greeks or the Italians, the Vietnamese, the Sikhs, the people who come here and help and grow the country, the South Africans who work hard when they get here. These people, a lot of them are mostly on the dole, and they've got enough time to come out and hijack cars and belt people up. So a plebiscite so the Australian people can have a say is my solution to that problem.
What on earth is your evidence for any of that, that they're mostly on the dole, that there are gangs roaming the streets, when police are saying that no, there are not gangs roaming the streets, that it's just a very, very low statistical anomaly of some people doing it? And if you wanted to talk statistics, like white teenage crime is much higher. This
is gang crime. There is tons of evidence.
What is your evidence?
The evidence is the people are being bashed by them. Do you read the newspapers? And by the way, only about a fraction of what actually happens you'll ever see in the newspapers. The left-wing media never like to report the fact that these people are out there doing it. And I've had several thousand phone calls, emails, Facebook posts from people telling us where it's happening and when it's happening, and they're real Australians. But all that is, all this racist and all that sort of stuff, that it's just a diversion from the real issue. There is an issue. The gang violence is happening. It happened right out in front of this building only 3 weeks ago.
Queensland police have directly contradicted what you're claiming. How do you explain that?
Well, it's entirely up to them what they want to tell you. If that's what they've been told to say, then that's fine. But I'm telling you now, the gangs are here.
You think the police are being directed to say something?
I have no idea why they're saying that. There's in Greenslopes the other night a 17-year-old boy stabbed by a gang of African youths in Yeronga, in Rocklea, or Runcorn I should say. We've had 4 attacks in the last 5 weeks by African groups of young African males. 4 women in 50 minutes the other day in broad daylight were robbed of their handbags and their gear, and one of them as well punched in the head for it. So if you don't think that's important, I suggest it would be a really good idea to talk to the people who have been bashed.
Senator, the calls for you to resign. What's your reaction to that? Can you look down the middle of the cameras if that's okay?
Sure. Well, I won't be resigning. Who's calling for me to resign?
There's been calls by many people, and particularly telling voters not to vote for you at the next election. I mean, how do you feel about those claims?
Those comments? Well, it's entirely up to the Queensland people who they vote for. Whether they vote for me or not is entirely up to them. But as far as some left-wing politician telling me to resign, of course that's a bit of stupidity. I'd say they should resign themselves.
Senator, is it okay to perform a Nazi salute in Australia?
Absolutely not. It's abhorrent to any Australian, any decent citizen. However, the group that I was with in St Kilda the other day were not doing Nazi salutes. The left-wing media, and I'm not sure which particular one, I think it was one of the newspapers, attributed one group's actions to another group, which is lousy journalism. It's third-rate journalism, and they should be called out for it. There was a group there with Antifa and left-wingers, and they're screaming out Nazi, 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 and walking around doing Nazi salutes. The people that I was with were not doing any of that. I can absolutely guarantee I was there for the whole time, and that group never did any of that sort of stuff. I wouldn't have been there if they had. So using one group's actions and trying to put it onto some other group is really, really third-rate journalism.
That is legitimately what you were doing. You were using the actions of a couple of teenagers and using it to smear an entire community.
Okay, so your opinion is your opinion. All that is a
just
diversion from the real issue, which is what you're trying to do here, is divert from the real issue.
No, I'm not trying to divert. You have just named some incidents which you have said is all African gangs. In your preamble, you said that these people should not be coming into Australia, that we should be having a say. You are using yourself, the actions of a few, to smear an entire community.
It's not the actions of a few. When you get groups of 100 people in a group, nearly kicking to death 4 or 5 innocent people on our streets, that's not a few people. And this is now spread to several other different areas. I had a call from a man in South Australia at Crystal Beach, I think it is, 60 of them in a group. And this is a little regional area. Another one from, not Mudgee, but one of the western New South Wales towns. Again, groups of African youths attacking people. And also right here in Toowoomba, which is a regional area. So it's not a few people, I can tell you now. And all you need to do is talk to the victims. And until you're a victim, and that may happen one day, who knows, we're all got to go out and walk in the streets every now and then. No one wants to believe it.
Senator,
it's the truth.
How many Australians do you think believe what you say are on your side?
As many as support me, I'm not sure, I wouldn't have a clue, but I've worked in hotels, I've had 30 odd hotels in my life. I've spoken to hundreds of thousands of people in cattle yards and in construction. And I can tell you now, 100% of those people, I'm speaking for those people, they're the real Australians who are out there doing the job, earning the tax dollars that these people are using we're using to house these people and feed them, and so they can come out and give us a bashing on the street, and that's just not what the Australian people want.
Senator, are you friends with Blair Cottrell?
Sorry?
Are you friends with Blair Cottrell?
I've never met him in my life until last Saturday.
Have you ever spoken to him before?
Never.
Do you think he's a patriot?
I really don't know. I've heard all these things about what he has and hasn't done. I have no opinion on his past history, but excuse me, I wasn't there to support anyone. I was there to represent the people of Queensland, which is my job.
Who invited you to the rally?
No one. I didn't need an invitation. I didn't think I'm an Australian. It's part of Australia, so I went down there see what's happening, because I know that they have a problem there just like we have here.
So how did you find out about the rally?
Excuse me?
How did you find out about the rally?
On Facebook. So I went down there and it was very interesting. I didn't realise that the mad left-wing group were going to perform like they did, but they did. So I mean, that's up to them. They were exercising their rights, I suppose, as well.
Will you repay the cost of travelling to the rally?
No, I won't.
Why not?
Well, it was legitimate business as far as I'm concerned. I didn't go down there for a party or a picnic. I went down there in the morning and came back in the afternoon.
How can it be legitimate business though when the police commissioner has given advice there aren't any African gangs?
Okay, and funnily enough, the police down there in Melbourne are saying the same thing, but at the same time, the deputy commissioner said, when they invade your house, don't be confrontational, give them the keys, let them take what they like. That's how Australia was built, I guess. I don't know where this guy came from, but he should have his badge taken away from him. We didn't build Australia by turning the other cheek or waving the white flag. Our diggers went and fought and died for our right to do these things and to say what we want to say and to be able to protect ourselves in our homes. Excuse me, I've got a cough.
You've claimed the highest amount on family travel last quarter, even higher than cabinet ministers. How do you justify that?
I don't have to. My wife is a volunteer with my office, and so she travels with me to Canberra and other places. And that money they pushed all the whole year's allowance into a quarter, as far as I can see, but it's within parliamentary guidelines.
So you don't think it's unusual that yours is higher?
Well, my wife's probably one of the few people who, wives, I guess, of parliamentarians who do help out, and she volunteers and does quite a lot of work for us in my office.
Senator, and will you go to more rallies in the lead up to the election if we see more around the country?
I go to Right to Life rallies, Safe School rallies, South African, the white South Africans who are being persecuted.
Anti-black African gang rallies, will you go to more in Australia if there are more?
Sure, I'll go there. Why not? I'll go to rallies that, if I think it's important for the Queensland people, absolutely.
30 years ago, the Vietnamese people were being accused of several of the same things that you were accusing them. Now you're saying that, you know, Vietnamese people did assimilate. You use them as an example of good migrants. How is this any different?
Well, these guys are not good migrants. The Vietnamese came over here and they started work straight away. They weren't on the dole for 4 and 5 years.
But 30 years ago, there were exactly the same allegations being made about Vietnamese migrants.
Well, not by me, they weren't. But if people were making those allegations, they may have had a reason to. I know that when the Greeks first came over and the Italians, they were being called nasty names. But all those people did assimilate and they did go into jobs. They didn't bash people in the streets, they didn't attack their homes, and they didn't do carjackings, none of them that I knew of. So they got into the work, just like the white South African farmers when they come here, or white South Africans, they come over here and they're employed straight away and they work hard and they've helped build this country. So they're the sort of immigrants that I'd like to see come to this country.
But are you saying that the black Africans can't be afforded the same opportunities to assimilate and join the workforce?
They've had plenty of opportunity to assimilate and join the workforce, but after 5 years, 89% of them are still on the dole. So
sorry, where does those stats come from?
Sorry?
Where do those stats come from?
ABS. But thank you very much for that.
You're maligning an entire community. You're maligning an entire community's group by the actions of a few.
That's right, yes. The group are not assimilating. They have parents. Some of these kids are 13 and 14. The new one's called the Blood Drill Kill gang, and they're the younger brothers of the Apex gangs, the younger brothers and sisters. Those people, where's their mums and dads? Where are they giving them discipline and giving them direction and saying, thank these people for having us in the country, don't go out and attack them. But look, thank you very much for that. Thank you very